If you're receiving this transmission, you are the resistance, declaring war on the New World Order. TruthRadioShow.com. Defending liberty in the spirit of 1776. It's Dan Bidondi on TruthRadioShow.com. All right, folks, welcome to the Dan Bidondi Show right here on TruthRadioShow.com. We got a very, very interesting show for you today, man. This is going to be explosive. A lot of people already aware about the China's human organ harvesting, but wait till you hear this stuff. We got right here, basically, you should call him a whistleblower, really. I guess here, Mitchell Nicholas Gerber. He's from StopOrganHarvesting.org. And we got a lot to talk about. So, Nicholas, you're on the air, brother, and give us an introduction. And
what's going on, Dan? I really appreciate me coming on your show, man. This is a long time coming. Hard to do. I'm risking my life. I'm in Hanoi, Vietnam, and I'm grateful to be on your show, man. Because at any time the Vietnamese Communist Party, from the control of the Chinese Communist Party, will haul my ass out of my apartment and put me in a labor camp, or worse, or even extradite me back to the States. And I'm just glad to be on this on your show, because this is a new subject. This is a new form of evil. We've heard about harvesting and organ harvesting in the world, but man, when I tell you what's going on in China, you guys won't believe it. But it's going on, and it's true. So I appreciate it. Come on your show, man.
Oh, it's a pleasure, man. And when you first got in contact with me, you told me what's going on. I mean, I knew there was organ harvesting, but nothing like this, man. I wasn't even aware there was a huge market in China going on. And I did a little research, and I'm like, wow. And this is a very, very important topic, especially now. I mean, with this coronavirus going on and all the, what they're doing to their own people in China, man, it is evil, plain and simple. So, so how'd you get involved with this whole thing and everything else?
When I was studying international business at the University of Georgia, once upon a time in about 2001, I came across this beautiful movement, spiritual movement, very fighting, MMA, love martial, working out, and kung fu, and Bruce Lee, and all that stuff. So at that time, when I was attending the university, they had like this festival, this music festival, and I walked around, and what was intriguing was the energy from this one particular booth, I guess. And I went up to them, and I saw that these Chinese people were practicing these 5 gentle spiritual exercises, and I was like, well, this looks pretty cool. Let me go have a try. I'm not interested in religion. Don't give me all this spiritual woo-woo nonsense. But my body was a little bit tight. I was depressed. I was anxious. My girl left me. I was drinking a lot, smoking a lot, and I wanted something that can relieve my pain and my stress. In my business school, I was a president of this group, and I was a president of that group, and I was making moves. But something inside me was like, yo, you got to settle down. You got to do something that's uplifting and peaceful and slow your roll. So I was like, okay, I guess this is what I was looking for, and I went into the park of the University of Georgia in Atlanta, in Atlanta, and citizen, and a Trump supporter like you are, and most of your viewers probably are. And I was doing the exercises of this particular group called the Fulan Gong, and man, immediately I just felt my whole body open up, unlike I've never felt before in such a short period of time. And this particular ancient Chinese spiritual discipline, Dan, and everybody who's listening, called Falun Gong. It's a very Buddhist type of tradition. If you know anything about the Eastern Way, yoga, Tai Chi, you know it's a very meditative, organic, spiritual, and it has a moral philosophy of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. So I came to learn this practice, and then I realized that this practice was banned under communism, and these people have been killed for their organs. I mean, seriously mandated to state mandated hospitals. Hundreds and thousands have been sent to these state mandated hospitals and these concentration camps and these labor camps and camps. Their organs cut out of their bodies while alive, sold for the massive amounts of profit, and then the bodies then burned in the ovens to conceal the evidence. And video clip one, man, really, it's kind of long, but it really portrays exactly what's going on in a nutshell.
Oh yeah. So if you want to play that video clip right now, that's
Yeah, why
all
not?
right. So let's go to this video clip, folks, and we'll be right back. This is very one-on-one people though for us. If you got a weak stomach or anything like that, this is very touching stuff and very gruesome because you got to see the real truth, and that's what we like to bring here is show people the real truth, unedited and uncut of what is really going on. And we've been exposing the coronavirus for since it started, telling you the exact truth how it's a bioweapon. And today we're going to focus on this whole human trafficking ordeal here. So this is the first video.
Where do these organs go? Where is this vast number of trading items going?
People used to go to India, they used to go to Egypt, they used to go to the Philippines. People have written books about this and made a big fuss about this. And they've tended to lump all these issues together as part of human exploitation. I don't lump them together. I did not write this book. It is not called Malpractice. It is not called Prisoners' Rights Abuse in China. It is called The Slaughter, because these people, Uyghurs, Falun Gong, pregnant women, are not even given any form to sign. There is no consent form to write out as a final act, I want to donate my organs to the state. And they're treated like animals, and they're slaughtered like animals, and that is the essence of this book. That is why I consider this a crime against humanity, not a question of prisoners' rights or rights abuse. This is a unique crime. It's one of the bigger crimes we've seen this century, maybe in the last century too. It's an unusual crime. It compares with Unit 731, but it represents a level of medical corruption that we have not seen since the Holocaust. A level of medical experimentation and the willingness to use lives this way. Now we have an ability to turn us into $200,000 and $300,000 worth of profit. That's what we're worth. If we were at war, this would be the moment where we bomb the railways. We are not at war, therefore this is the moment where we have to take stock of what we can accept, we as a people can accept doing. What can we be involved with? How culpable can we be? In China, the kidney in the bathtub story is not only real, it is state-sponsored. It is run by the Chinese government. And it does not just use regular prisoners, rapists, murderers, the like. It uses prisoners of conscience. We've reached a state of evidence. Now, having said that, I am standing on the shoulders of giants, plenty of great researchers who've done great work in this area, and I think we've reached critical mass. If you are going to China right now to get an organ, chances are a perfectly innocent person is dying for you. 65,000 people over 8 years, political prisoners. It uses this massive prisoner population, particularly Falun Gong, as a source for organs. This is the only country where this is truly legal. This is it. China. Now this is something we all want to neglect. We all want to turn our eyes away. We're not going to stop trading with China. We're not going to, China is going to be a player in the world. How do we square the China we know with what I've just told you? It is like finding out a relative of yours is a child molester. Now, you may have known they had some problems before, but now you know they're a child molester. I've given you that knowledge. I don't tell you what to do with that knowledge. Like, I don't tell you to do anything in the book. That's not what I'm here to do, is to tell the reader how to think about that. But if we are to live with ourselves, can we continue to have organ tourism to China?
Okay, so that was the first video there, and I didn't, I mean, I couldn't hear it on my end because of the recording stuff here, but man, crazy stuff, man. I watched these videos last night, and the information's, I don't people, if they don't believe it, but this is actually in the news. Of course they try to downplay it a little bit, but this is real stuff that's going on, man.
Absolutely, and to understand how Falun Gong, the particular practice that has been outlawed in China, there are other three: the Uyghur Muslims, which I think most people have also heard of it now because of the mainstream media has come out that have said that there are Uyghur Muslims in about 3 million in concentration camps. You've got the house Christians, you've got the Catholics, and you've got the Tibetans. But Falun Gong, throughout the 90s, 1 out of every 10 Chinese national citizen, from the highest ranking members of the government to military generals to multinational CEOs to professors to more than half of upper classes in China, to the rural population, 1 out of every 10 Chinese national citizens were practicing this particular spiritual meditation and mind and body practice, namely Falun Gong. And there was about 100 million people by 1998. But by 1999, the communist leader, Jiang Zemin, the evil head of the communist regime, grew very hateful and jealous that he couldn't control the hearts and the minds of so many people. He outlawed the practice and slandered it and demonized it as some kind of terrorist cult, just like the Nazis did with the Jews and other genocides around the world, to scapegoat some group and then wipe them out. And he tried to destroy them in 3 months. And this has been going on for 20 years now, this genocide. And the worst thing is, in 2006, the lawyers, David Kilgour and David Matas from Canada, who I joined forces with in London at our briefing to expose this evil, that they came out with at least 18 pieces of evidence, now up to 52 pieces of evidence, confirmed that state-mandated, state-sanctioned, and state-endorsed, no other place in this world, people, is this going on such a size, scale, or magnitude, where hundreds of thousands of innocent people have been rounded up by the Chinese military in cattle cars, just like the Jews were with the Nazis, and sent to state-mandated hospitals. They're forcefully turning the doctors into murderers, cutting out their organs with a little anesthetic just to hold down the bodies so 4 people don't have to hold down a body trying to get away, cutting out the organs while alive without any consent, killing them, and then selling the organs as for a multi-billion-dollar organ harvesting business.
Unreal, man. And I'm sorry, just looking at the pictures, man, it's just crazy stuff. But I also practice martial arts myself. I'm a black belt in Japanese Shotokan and Kempo. And yeah, we know what it takes, like the mentality to be in the martial arts. But just want to elaborate on that for you. But yeah, man, checking out these pictures, dude. Sick stuff, man. And I can't believe this is actually going on, man. And do these people die first, or they just go and kill them and rip them out, or rip them out while they're alive? How does that work?
Rip it out while alive. Kill to order. Whereas an organ harvesting, I'm in Southeast Asia. There's the kidney in the bathtub story, where you wake up in the morning after a long drink or party, you get drugged and you wake up with your kidney gone. This is nothing like this. This is state mandated. This is Chinese military authorized final solution campaign, and they are sent to death camps and state mandated hospitals. The organs, while they are alive, they are sedated, just a little anesthetic just to hold them down so they can't move, and then the organs are just extracted forcefully. And there was a doctor whose wife came out, and her alias is Annie, and she goes around the world and talks about the story about how her surgeon her former husband, was a surgeon and removed the corneas of 2,000 Falun Gong practitioners who were alive. I also sat down with Enver Totti, who was a Chinese surgeon who escaped the horrors of China, but who was forcefully mandated by his superior and the Chinese military to do a forced organ harvesting. So yeah, this is going on, man. And to understand how this is or why this is going on, there's no limit to how far the Chinese Communist Party will go to wipe out something or someone. I mean, damn, listen to me, man. I mean, this is if anyone knows about the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, everyone talks about, well, China does this and China does that. No, guys, it's not about China. It's the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, the Red Dragon, aka the Reign of Terror, that has controlled China, the Chinese people, the Chinese civilization, the Chinese military, the Chinese economy, and every known dictatorship, even the radical communist left in America, who's trying to destroy the constitutional rights. Dan, you see what they're doing with the guns.
Yep.
All the communist the regimes around the world, what do they do first? They disarm the people in order to take over and destroy the will of God. They destroy the constitutional values. They can't. You're not allowed to fly the flag in the United States anymore. Many Americans nowadays, I've noticed, don't want to speak what they feel because they'll get fined or they'll get banned off Twitter. Look how many conservative people have been demonetized, including you on Facebook. Look at Google, all in bed by the communist regime. And now you got Bernie freaking Sanders, a radical communist, and the radical left like Ocasio-Cortez and Omar Ilmar the Buttigieg, not as bad as Bernie Sanders, but Bernie Sanders is a radical communist. He's totally a Marxist, and this is the playbook that he's trying to implement into the United States is the communist regime's agenda. And if I just may add quickly, the Chinese Communist Party has murdered between 60 and 100 million people, more than 2 world wars combined, and has wiped out any kind of religious, spiritual, or democratic group in China, has decimated 5,000 years of Chinese culture. And there is a saying that many people or many dictators or many emperors or many empires or kings or queens, whatever you want to call it, that they came to power and killed in order to conquer. The CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, conquered in order to kill. So their history of killing has now been adopted and will be adopted by Bernie Sanders if he doesn't, and you will, and I will, and everyone else who believes in Trump, who supports Trump, who's a patriot, will be hauled off to gulags, shot dead, banned off air, demonetized. Their bank accounts will be frozen. Their children will be taken away from them. They'll be thrown out of schools. They'll be re-educated. Just like the Fulan Gong and the people of China have been under the communist regime for 50 years.
Oh yeah, it just came out in the media right here in the United States here how they seen how China is investing hundreds of millions of dollars into our universities, and we know about the whole Chinese mafia system with the whole technocracy takeover of all the social internet, internet and everything else, and shutting people like us down, and they're influencing that gun control crap here in America with Bernie Sanders, Uncle Pedophile Joe, and all these other clowns in the Democratic Party, man. And that's what they, remember last year, oh, nobody's trying to take your guns. Now they're saying, yeah, we are trying to take your guns, and they're going after Christianity big time. They're going after any religion that's against globalism. They're going after, the traditional families now, because you're a bigot. You don't even have to criticize the LGBT, but if you don't conform yourself to it, you're automatically a bigot. They're going after the churches who won't conform. Look in China too. They're burning churches down, mosques down, Muslim mosques as well. They're going after all the religions. Unless you worship the state, you're a bigot and you're a racist. That's the way they feel.
Absolutely. There's a great publication for your avid listeners who are readers and want to learn more about the hell, the reign of terror of evil communism and the Communist Party and China in general, the political, social, economic structures that are now collapsing. That's why they unleashed this bioweapon as a power grab, because they know that they can't last so much longer. But anyway, to cut a long story short, the publication is free and it can be watched on also YouTube. It's called The 9 Commentaries on the Communist Party, www.NINE, the number 9 spelt out, commentaries.com. And this is an amazing documentary and publication that exposes how evil Marxism is, Leninism, Trotskyism is, Stalinism, which is communism. It's a violent revolution, a complete takeover of the mind, body, spirit, and soul of the human being to destroy the races, the creeds, the colors, the genders, the godly attributes, the traditional values, the constitutional rights, the free rights of law-abiding citizens, and make them into complete, absolute, fearful slaves. And if we're not careful, and the American people don't wake up soon, they will become like that, like communist China, because I've seen, after 20 years of my fight, Dan, and I can tell you it's been a freaking fight. I'm still in communist Vietnam right now. You have no property. The Vietnamese are owned by the state. You say anything about the government, I have people in high-ranking officials, I have people in the government, I have people in the military, I have people in the editor-of-chiefs of very big, powerful newspapers, and they tell me all, if you speak up against the government, you are done, you're finished, you get locked up for 18 years or worse. So they're covering up the coronavirus here. Don't get it twisted. I mean, and the communist regime is covering up everything, because this is communism. It is evil. The masses of deception.
Exactly with that, and everything they're doing over there, they want to push here. And I mean, some parts of the country they are pushing this stuff. California, I mean, I call it mini China Part 2, whatever. But I mean, they're really laying the hammer down here in the United States, and they're openly coming out with it now. They're not hiding nothing. And they're saying it's for the greater good. All this garbage is propaganda, and unfortunately, it's funny too, because it's not funny, but they're telling 50 states, I believe, whatever it was, that they're teaching children that the Constitution and the Revolution, I'm sorry, is about racism, it's about slavery, and which is none of the sort, you know what I mean? And so they're diluting the children. That's why they took civics out of school, because they don't want kids to learn the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and American history.
Absolutely, and I'm a legal citizen. I'm grateful to the United States. I owe my life, my family's life, and everything to the United States, to the Constitution, to you, Dan, to your American listeners who are out there. I am so grateful, because there is no other country in the world that is more free, more open, more enterprising, more capitalistic than America. And God bless the spirit of America. And that's why I'm so in support of Trump, for fighting this communism. I think God, as a believer, I think Trump is a godsend to fight against and save the republic against this evil communism, because it is China and America and everyone else behind him. And the thing is that this globalist cabal, this international bankers, they want to destroy the economy right now. They've unleashed us by help of Bill Gates and the Chicoms and the international bankers. The United Nations is under the control of Communist China. The World Health Organization is colluded with the Communist China. Hollywood is in with the Communist Chinese. The NBA, I mean, these sons of guns, this coward LeBron James and these people who bowed to the communist regime. When the Hong Kong protesters, I mean, these are students who are barricaded and fighting against the invasion of the Chinese military into Hong Kong. These are not Hong Kong police. These were actual disguised Chinese communist military. They were trying to destroy Hong Kong and take over Hong Kong. And when the San Antonio Spurs general manager tweeted out about standing with the Hong Kong protesters, the communist regime went apeshit, excuse my language. But I can tell you right now, what happened after that? Everyone said quiet. The guy issued an apology when LeBron James was asked, what do you think about this? Or I don't have much information. BS, buddy. You know exactly what's going on, but you don't say a word, because there's millions and millions and millions of dollars and the massive market share that you're hiding behind and you're protecting against the lives of these innocent, courageous people of the Hong Kong people, stopping this monster, this reign of terror. And that's why I take my hat off to you, Dan, because I can tell you might even get demonetized for putting this up on YouTube, and you might get a cyber attack by the communist regime. It always happens when I go on shows, man. I'm Lionheart, brother. I bring the power, I bring the pain. But you know what? It's about truth. Exactly. Exactly. It's about truth. Yes, sir.
I don't care if they demonetize it, as long as they get the truth out, and that's all that matters to me.
Damn right. You want to play video clip 2? I think that's the investigators. I think your listeners, because they want to, they would be interested, because it's such a hard to believe, and people blow it off of this is going on in other countries. What makes you so sure this is going on? But we have 52 pieces of evidence, man. This is going on. This is a new form of evil. That's absolutely shocking, but really hard to believe. So, if you can play the clip with the investigators, I think they will shed some light.
Awesome. So here we go with video number 2.
There are people in the world that try to replace kindness and compassion in our hearts with hatred and fear. be it suicide bombing or a government's action to suppress people's belief. Their goal is clear: to control us by fear. I wanted to compete for the Miss World title because I want to inspire people to care about each other again, to have kindness and compassion back in the society. I want to speak up for those who can't speak up for themselves. They shouldn't be left victimized, silenced, in the corner of the world where no one hears them. China used to be a land that's so rich in spiritual practices. We had Taoism, Buddhism, all kinds of different beliefs that flourished on our land. But right now it's being reduced to political slogans. People live under fear throughout their lives without even knowing that they do have a right to speak up for themselves. In the film The Bleeding Edge, my character is a victim of human rights abuse in China. She has been through tons of torture, but she still tries so hard to stay true to herself. And that's why it is so precious to get to know these people, the real people behind these stories. Hope is the only thing that's way more powerful than fear.
我不能转化，因为法轮大法好。
The persecution has been going on for the past 16 years, but the whole world is silent about it. That's why I try so hard to get my voice out there, not just for them, for everyone. These abuses will touch our freedom to speak, to think, to defend our own convictions.
Mr. Chairman, I hope that together we can gain Chinese people a voice. I hope this can happen soon. For myself, this would give me back a father, but for many others, it would save their lives. Thank you very much.
All right, so that was the third video we had for our presentation. No, second, I'm sorry. So we got two more, but before that, I mean, like, I couldn't hear because of my OBS system here. So was she trying to compete in the world sports or something and being denied?
Yeah, that was Anastasia Ling. I think you played the Anastasia Ling video. Yeah, she is Miss Beauty, Miss Canada,
Oh, okay.
the beauty queen from Miss Canada 2016, 2015, and she was trying to compete in China for Miss 2017, but they denied her. I mean, this is Miss World. Canada denied her to go into the pageant, and she practices the Fulan Gong exercises, and she does what she wants to do with her crown to expose more of this persecution. And yeah, that's she's an amazing person. But the other two videos will probably touch upon even more of the investigators, because David Kilgour and David Matas, these are the two investigators who came out from Canada to expose the forced organ harvesting of the Falun Gong. They came out in 2006, and they shared about 15 to 18 pieces of evidence that 40 to 60,000 Falun Gong practitioners were harvested for their organs alive. Then they were joined forces by Ethan Gutman, who's a nominee of the Nobel Peace Prize of 2018 and a China investigator from out of America. And he wrote the book The Slaughter, a 10-year report done against the Chinese Communist regime's cover-up. And then Miss World came along, and the coalition, which I think you can play in the next video clip later on, shows them all coming together. Matthew Robinson, who is an award-winning reporter as well, who did the report on one of the hospitals that where he documented the rise in the hospital beds, the wards, the hospital wards, really getting it down like to the nitty-gritty of that this is definitely happening. And he was talking about, as you'll see in the next video, the die-hard skeptics. Like, Do they really think it's going on? A lot of the high-ranking officials of the human rights organizations are like, oh yeah, that issue, we know about that issue, but is it really going on? First of all, they don't read the stuff. They don't really care about it because they're also bribed by the communist regime, the Vatican, the World Health Organization, the Transplantation Society, Hollywood, like we just talked about, NBA, the governing bodies. A lot of them are bribed. A lot of them are told not to say anything.
I mean, China controls Hollywood. They control everything basically over here, and they're trying to bring that Chinese censorship to every walk of life in this country here.
Exactly. But the good thing about it is that there are 4 countries, and this is shocking, out of 165 plus countries, only 4 have banned organ tourism from China after hearing about the forced organ harvesting against the spiritual movement, the Fulan Gong. They are Israel. Now, a lot of people think, with the Zionists. Yeah, I mean, there is a Zionist movement which is very evil and has endangered Judaism and has caused a lot of problems in Israel. Yet this Sanhedrin, on the other end, because there's always light and there's dark. There's 2 sides of every story, right? There's a duality in life, evil and righteous. And even though there's a lot of Zionist factions that are working with the globalist cabal and are working with the international bankers and the Tricoms to destroy the world, there is an ancient rabbinic council and the Knesset and people who have come out like Rabbi Saperstein, Rabbi Reuben Balka, and Jacob Levi, who is the president of the Transplantation Society in Israel, who banned organ tourism and actually implemented a 2008 transplantation law stating and mandating that forbidding any Israeli citizens from going to China and getting an organ transplant because of what they came up with and what they realized with the evidence. The other, so that was Israel. Now you have Taiwan and you have Spain and you have Italy. Only 4, Dan, only 4 countries out of 165 plus have banned organ tourism. So Scotland, I think, is coming up as well, but very few, only 4. So it's crazy.
Oh, I bet, man.
And I bet your listeners are asking, like, where are these organs being sold? Who are buying these organs? Well, the biotech firms, medical associations around the world. You've got rich foreigners from Pakistan, South Korea, the United States, from Canada. When this organ harvesting tourism business started, and the kill to order ratio, where you could get hearts and livers and kidneys, which would take 3 or 4 or 5 or 8 year waiting lists times, in 3 or 4 2 weeks, the tourism rate of organs skyrocketed in the United States. And the worst shocking evidence we got out of this was at endtransplantabuse.org. It's the parent site to stoporganharvesting.org.
I'm looking at right now a slide I got on the picture up here. It shows different organs and what they're worth. This is back a couple of years ago, but that's nuts, man. $160,000 for a heart.
Exactly. And what's the worst thing is that not only do they sell it outside internationally, think about this. This is what was shocking to us. China has 130 million hepatitis B carriers. Damn. China also has 40 to 50% of the world's liver cancer patients. Okay, so in addition to over half the world's new liver cancer patients, about 350,000 cases per year. So for the 8 million end-stage liver patients, including those of liver failure, cirrhosis, and liver cancer, what do you think the most effective treatment is? Transplantation. So what the communist regime was doing was selling the Fulan Gong organs freshly taken out of their bodies, torn out of their bodies while alive, back to their own citizens. Wow. You know what I mean? So this is insane. This is the Chinese Communist Party. This is a reign of terror. This is a demonic evil specter. This is the red dragon that has wiped out 100 million people. And you know, when you read the 9 commentaries, I mean, the cannibalism bordering up the Chinese military, bordering up Wuhan, bordering up Hubei, bordering up. People are starving. People are being shot to death. People are going insane. People are committing suicide right now in China. 700 million people have been quarantined.
These are people who have been controlling China for the last 50 years?
50 plus years, yes. Yeah. 50 plus years. Under Mao Zedong. Mao Zedong wiped out 40 to 50 million people through starvation. Wow. You know, Jiang Zemin, who was the evil head of the communist regime, not many people know about him. outlawed 100 million people. President Xi, who is a complete dictator, is also a menace to society. Yeah, this is a reign of terror. There's no other regime on the face of the earth. Because think about it, all the other regimes in Africa, in the Middle East, the radical left in the United States, Bernie Sanders, who do you think is controlling them? Who do you think is funding them? The international bankers, the Rockefellers, the of the world, they're all backed by the Google is all based in China. Cisco Systems, Microsoft created an Operation Golden Shield, which is a censorship, the largest firewall censorship in the world. I was listening to Steve Bannon the other day being interviewed by the Epoch Times, Turning Point, and he was talking about how, anyone who is selling the rights to the Communist Party, censorship products like Cisco Systems, Google, should be ashamed of themselves, should be brought into criminal court and fined for crimes against humanity, sentenced and in charge for crimes against humanity.
And rightfully so, man. They should. I just hope and pray that, because I've seen some videos already from this coronavirus and the people just calling for an uprising against their own government, and I just hope and pray that by some miracle they could just rise up and take these people out and hold them for crimes against humanity. Because with this, not to keep going to the coronavirus, but what they're doing now, we know it's a bioweapon, and they're committing crimes against humanity and their own people at that. You know what I mean? So between the organ harvesting, them stealing the civil liberties, just killing people for speaking out, this stuff going on, man. China needs a huge 1776 style revolution.
Damn right, brother. Damn right. If you want to play another clip, man, sure. The one about the evidence. I think there's a 13-minute clip. I know it's number 3. I think it's Edward McMillan Scott, the Vice President of the European Union, or it's the investigators. I'm not sure, but
Oops, yeah. I got your email. Where is it? You sent me the 3 clips. It's the Roundtable. Number 3.
Perfect.
Okay.
That's correct. Yeah, those are all the investigators. So this is the evidence.
All right. So we're gonna go to clip number 3, and we'll be right back.
Decade, the Chinese Communist Party. For over a decade, the Chinese Communist Party has been butchering thousands of prisoners of conscience for their organs, one of the most horrific genocides in modern history. Doctors schedule an exact day that foreign patients get an organ, whereas in the US, it usually takes around 2 years to find a match. Welcome to the Coalition Roundtable. I'm your host, Chris Chappell. The Chinese Communist Party has been harvesting the organs of its citizens, prisoners of conscience. This has been a watershed year for the story, thanks in part to those who are joining me today. Let's talk a bit about the investigative process. How do we know this is happening? So are these live organ harvests?
Yeah, always.
Yeah. I mean, organ transplantation in China is different from everywhere else in the world, because everywhere else in the world you're dealing either with live donors who, after the donation, are still alive, brain-dead donors who are obviously brain-dead after the transplants as well. In China, you get people killed through the organ extraction, and that's only in China.
How is getting an organ in China different from anywhere else in the world?
Nowhere else in the world, to my knowledge, is the donor killed in the process. If you get a kidney from X country, you're probably getting 1 kidney and somebody's being paid a certain amount of money. It's not good for their health, of course, but in China, the donor is dead and the body's burned. And that's something that people find very hard to accept.
And from the patient experience, there's a couple ways it's different. One is militarization. I mean, you don't normally have military personnel operating on you for a transplant elsewhere, but that's true in China. Another is they send you to the courts to figure out where to get the organ from. Or the courts don't normally serve as organ distribution centers anywhere else, but they certainly do in China. And another is the form of payment. It's often these red envelopes. You know, there's a lot of cash being thrown around, high amounts. It just reeks of corruption and undercover activity.
Don't we estimate that it's about $8 or $9 billion a year they're getting now out of their industrial scale? That's a lot of people, a lot of salaries.
I think our challenge all along has been to convince the diehard skeptics. And the original thought behind that was to try to bring this issue into one tangible thing that you can hold in your hand and kind of move around.
So you feel a lot of the information in the bloody harvest and the slaughter, it was not enough to convince the skeptics? Because it sounds like there's a lot of information out there that was just on the table.
First of all, they don't read the stuff. I mean, so that already makes it very difficult.
Very difficult indeed. Just throw this away now.
These diehard skeptics, they would just not read the stuff and then dismiss it.
I've met with former senior people at major human rights organizations, and they don't know that it's for real, or they don't think it's for real. They're like, oh yeah, that issue. Yeah, but I thought it's like a bit, you know, thrown together. They don't have this idea that it's like totally for real.
So where's that gap coming from?
Because it is such a difficult issue to study. Like if you look at any other major human rights issue in China over the last like 20 years or so, you know, for others you've got like some document, for example, looking at orphanages in China that just like killed babies, like they let them starve to death in the cold. You know, in that case there was someone who came out, like a doctor who escaped with a duffel bag of documents. And so that, like, you know, makes that one bulletproof.
That was something that happened?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's totally extraordinary. This was like the biggest story, China human rights story. But like this one is like so crazy. You have to go about it systematically. So you have to whack like 3, 4, 5 moles at once, because people always have these different objections to like, well, how do you know it's not death row? Like, how do you really know it's not death row? How do you really, really, really know it's not death row? Anyway, the Tianjin, the whole point of that was to eliminate objections. Just going by that one hospital, you can be like, if at least you can show that in this hospital there's something really screwy going on. Like, first of all, that there's way more transplants than can be explained.
One thing that Matt said I'd like to follow up on is about waiting times. And there are not waiting times for organs, but there are waiting times for beds, because these hospitals are operating at capacity. There aren't enough doctors, there aren't enough beds, there aren't enough hospitals. And there's been this huge building boom of transplant hospitals, and Tianjin's one example of it. And how can they be building all this capital unless they're sure that not only there's a huge supply of organs now, but there's an endless supply of organs into the future? And
that is one of the most striking things, that while all this supposed debate has been going on, there's been all this hurly-burly and political play and statements from the Chinese about all their reforms and so forth, and we see it there's nothing reflected in the actual hospital records. There's nothing but construction, nothing but an endless construction, and no signs do we see within the actual literature of a lack of confidence in the future.
So how do you go from a practice that is promoted, it helps people's health, it preaches the truth, compassion, tolerance, you're saying. How does it go from that to then becoming a cult?
Too many people doing Fulan Gong, and that's the numbers.
So because of the spiritual vacuum after Cultural Revolution, Chinese people, they lost their tradition completely. They lost the spiritual side, belief, everything. And when Qigong exercise emerged, especially in Falun Gong, it became extremely popular. In the course of 7 years, there was 70 million to 100 million people practicing Falun Gong in China. The actual number, we don't know. It might be much higher than that. But because this popularity, 70 million to 100 million at that time in China is about 1/10 of Chinese population. If the Communist Party is going to persecute 1/10 of Chinese people, 1 out of 10 Chinese people, they need to turn the public opinion around. For people like us who live in the South, maybe some of us have never heard of Falun Gong before because we're not really tuned into that Qigong yoga movement thing anyway. I was a kid. That persecution, that propaganda on TV every day, in every level of media, really did the damage. And when the Western world first got to know Falun Gong, it was after the persecution started.
I think we have to put this in the context of intolerance generally. I mean, if you wouldn't ask, you know, what is it about Christianity that makes ISIS goes after Christians, or any of the other examples of religious intolerance?
David,
I mean,
you can think that way, but that's not the way I thought about it. One of my main purposes in my book was to go out and actually find out what this was about, because that was not a satisfactory answer to me, to just say, well, maybe they're a cult, maybe they're not, and who knows, but you know, they shouldn't be persecuted. No, I felt this is important to establish what this group is. And I mean, there's a simple definition that people can test for themselves, and doesn't require some expert coming out and saying, well, this is the definition of a cult and this is how it works. It's like, that's very vague stuff. My parents were psychologists, trust me, this isn't an exact science. What we found, though, is real cults have angry people who've left. That's what you have. You have people who've left the thing and they hate it, it's consumed their lives, and they're mad as hell, and they can't stop telling the world about it. So if you go to Children of God's website, post Children of God, you will find dramatic stories. If you go to the Scientologist, you'll find incredible stuff. If you go to, Divine Light Mission, you'll find these kinds of stories. You will not find this website for Fulan Gong. You will find a Chinese government-sponsored website that hasn't been updated for years, okay? Because it's not real. It's astroturf. It's fake. The point is, there is real action. I know people who've left Fulan Gong. I know practitioners who have no longer do the exercises. They don't strike me as particularly angry about it. They're still actually quite concerned about the human rights aspect. Okay, and I think that's very important because that's what separates out a cult, is that experience of, oh my God, this thing took over my life, it abused me, it used me, it separated me from my family. There's your academic definitions. It took my money. Those are the, and so there's a little bit of truth in the academic definitions, but the point is, Fulan Gong doesn't meet that.
Absolutely agree with you. It's not a cult. In fact, I used to be responsible for cults in the Department of the Attorney General in Alberta for a brief period, and so I got to know some of them. And you mentioned one of them a minute ago, and we've actually had a case in the courts in Canada where it was ruled that Fulan Gong is not a cult. And if you look at, as you said, all the indicia of cults, it is not one. And it's simply a part of this demonization that goes on. It's an easy term to throw out. David and I have met Fulan Gong practitioners in probably 50 countries.
Or even more, maybe. Yeah.
Okay. All walks of life, all ages, all backgrounds, all education. I've found them to be a wonderful group of people.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with any of that. I mean, Fulan Gong, first of all, it's not even an organization because it's a set of exercises with a spiritual foundation. Yeah. Everything's on the internet. You don't pay anything. You don't sign up to anything. You can start whenever you want. You can stop with it whenever you want. You don't even have to tell anybody you're doing it. You can. Their principles are very simple and ethical. And I mean, all of that is true. I still say, in terms of victimization, it doesn't matter. There is no excuse for killing anybody for their organs, no matter what you think of them.
I think what the issue is, sorry, I didn't make this point. This ties into exactly the problem with organ harvesting. Anastasia, everything you said about Fulan Gong, I dismiss it because you're a Fulan Gong practitioner. I don't believe a word you said. And everything you've heard, Fulan Gong is not a cult. You've been told this by your interaction with Fulan Gong. How do you deal with this just kind of broad dismissal?
If we frame the whole debate in the terms that are set by the Communist Party, then you get into this kind of dead end where you're arguing whether or not Fulan Gong is a cult. And it's just like this bizarre, just stupid line of argument. Of course it's not, first of all, but the only reason that would ever be even the terms in which it was discussed is because of this massive persecution. And the biggest thing that persecution did was turn something that wasn't even necessarily defined. And so it turned it into this disparate thing that you do into like a group.
See, Jews are very familiar with this, okay? I'm half Jewish, and David Matas is a Jew, and I think we're very familiar with this because all the years that we've been alive, we've gone to at least other countries or something, and people have said, yeah, that Holocaust thing, you guys must have done something. But this is true. So we're very used to this idea that people say, well, that bad thing that happened to you kind of brought it on yourselves maybe a little bit.
I'm involved in human rights generally, and I see sometimes the instrumentalization of human rights accusations, and sometimes political opposition will accuse their opponents of human rights violations, which are not real, as a way of making a political point. So, I mean, one has to evaluate a human rights accusation and look at the evidence. And you're right, we can't just trust somebody, whether Fulan Gong or not, simply because they say it. And I wouldn't dismiss somebody because they're Fulan Gong. I wouldn't trust them because they're Fulan Gong either. But most of our evidence, for the update, we have 2,400 footnotes. 2,200 of them are Chinese official sources.
For people to really come to terms with what Fulan Gong is, they would need to come to terms with an absolutely extraordinary injustice.
Why are they doing that, or how are they doing it, is why we outside are not reacting to this better or differently. And I think the reason is there's a lot of willful blindness, that people make money, they've got personal or company or government reasons for wanting to do business with China, and so they just ignore this because it's more convenient to do that.
Anastasia, you had a point?
Yes, because the nature of the crime we're talking about here, the evidence amount to
potentially crime against humanity. And because of the nature of the crime, it necessitates a response from foreign government if taken seriously. So everybody is intentionally, perhaps, turning a blind eye on this because no one wants to be the one that's responsible of the moral responsibility to do something, take action.
Not everybody is. The government of Israel and the Knesset in Israel passed laws barring Israeli nationals from going to China for organs when they discovered, a very renowned transplant scientist, Dr. J. Labby, discovered that patients were going to China for transplants at a particular time and place, and he realized then what was happening. So to their great credit, the Knesset passed laws barring trafficked organs. And of course, Taiwan has now done it last year, and Spain has done something quite similar too. So there are 3 countries that have shown real leadership in combating this.
I think one thing the international community fails to realize is the differences in how the Communist Party structures the country versus in the West. For example, in the United States, it's not as if hospitals are answering directly to the US government. But in China, it's a very different situation with how the CCP has a direct hold on all levels of society.
This is the most optimistic time in the organ harvest. Now, number one is taken seriously. Like it's a thing. It's not this weird sci-fi story.
Kidney in the bathtub story.
That itself is a big shift, and then that awareness will deepen. There are a lot of professionals getting involved. They're forming networks. They will mobilize to activate higher level intervention with China. It's getting momentum, and it's going to build and build. And there'll be a big, like, you know, what Ethan says, like, it's completely inevitable. There's going to be a huge global learning experience about this, because this is such a uniquely evil thing that has taken place from so many different aspects, and that will be analyzed and reflected on.
Okay, I think that's the end of that video there. So that was the 3rd video.
Yeah, that was the evidence. That was the Roundtable Coalition. David Kilgour, David Matas, Ethan Gutman, and Anastasia Lin. So that's just exposing it full on and blowing the lid on it, off it. So yeah.
Amazing, man. And you know, it's I've seen how they had investigative journalists there too. And I can only imagine how many people have already dabbled into this. Probably, I don't know, who knows how many might have got killed and everything else for doing this. But this is some deep stuff involving millions, if not billions of dollars in this industry. And of course, they got to shut up everybody they possibly can. And so, I mean, there's a lot of people out there today, like the average folks out there, they have no clue this stuff's going on. You know what I mean? At all. You know what I mean? And they go, you know, to work and everything else daily, and they tune into the radio with the fake news and everything. Of course, they're not going to tell you there's dark stuff that's going on, especially, God forbid, the mainstream media talks bad about China, you know?
Absolutely, and there's always going to be people there, no matter what you do. If you throw it in their face and you put it down and you tell them that this is white and it's exactly white, or the sky is blue, they're going to think it's different, and they're not going to believe you. So for those who, and for you, like I said, I take my hat off, because for those who are listening, and yeah, of course, no, thank you, man. You're doing a great thing here, and as a true patriot, and I know how hard you work, and to get this out on the news waves. I mean, you are a forerunner, because the amount of people I've talked to and try to get on their shows, even on Blaze TV, and haven't come back to me. I've tweeted them out. And you were one of the very few, you and Will. I'm still trying to get on Will.
I just actually talked to him this morning. He said you definitely want you on.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, absolutely. God bless you guys, because, you know, I even want to get on but MSNBC and the fake news on that side, I mean, they won't even touch it and actually demonize what we're trying to do. And it's very, very sad. But yeah, there was to add to the evidence, the China Tribunal was conducted a final judgment on December 28th. The presiding judge was the one that charged Slobodan Milosevic, the Serbian dictator, for the genocide in Serbia. And anyway, there was a tribunal in London, and they were unanimous and sure beyond a reasonable doubt that in China, forced organ harvesting from prisoners of conscience has been practiced. And the communist regime has covered this up. They had about 20 to 30 websites. marketing and promoting the sale of organs. They took that down, but before they took that down, the investigators got screenshots of them. We have the investigators have numerous telephone calls into the actual hospitals, taped conversations with doctors where the Fulan Gong investigators and other investigators pretended to be national foreign donors wanting to, rich foreigners, they wanted donors and organs specifically from the Falun Gong practitioners, and the doctors were on the other side. You could hear them like, yeah, sure, no problem. We got fresh organs and fresh supply. Basically like lobsters out of a tank, taking them out, cutting them while they're open and freshly taken out and sold. And it's crazy, man. It really is crazy.
Yeah, it is. That is really crazy, man. And just I'm baffled, man. I tell you the truth, I'm baffled by it right now because even though I knew about this, but to see this on this level, it's like it's real, but it's just like that thing that you need to pinch yourself, to even think this stuff kind of exists. And wow, so I could say.
Absolutely. Do you have the other video?
Yes.
I'm not sure which one. I'm not sure which one you have. I hope you got the. It's called Falun Gong persecution.
Yep,
that's the one.
Yep.
Yeah, that will give you a great perspective, everyone, what this is all about and what Falun Gong is particularly, because a lot of people are not sure really what it is until they actually see the exercises. So yeah, it's about 9 minutes. Bear with it, but it gives a complete picture and breakdown of what Falun Gong really is.
So we're gonna play this video, and when we come back from the video, he'll elaborate on it, and also we got the article how he was given death threats left on a cell phone and weird stuff, man. And like I said, they try to shut everybody up that stands in their way, literally shut them up by putting them in the grave. So you want to play this video now, or you got something else to add?
No, I was going to tell you after the video. Yeah, I'll definitely share with you about the FBI, because they came after me. The spies came after me, broke into my car, death threats. Yeah,
unreal,
stuff, man.
Unreal. So all right, let's go to this fourth and final video, and we'll be right back.
In the late 90s, Chinese government surveys said up to 70 million people were practicing Falun Gong daily. Health bills were decreasing, crime rates were falling, and morality was rising. So why were these people targeted for elimination and organ harvesting? Mona Ye was one of the millions meditating in parks every day.
There was a park across the street from my house. Because the first exercise site couldn't hold so many people anymore, it divided into the second, the third, the fourth. So at every street corner and in every park, you could see people practicing Falun Gong.
There was from different kind in society. It was many policemen and military.
It was just fundamental part of society at that time, and everybody knew somebody who practiced.
Falun Gong is a traditional practice of self-cultivation, a practice of slow-moving exercises, meditation, and studying of the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance, and trying to adopt those into your life.
While morning exercises had always been popular in China, Falun Gong brought more than just health benefits.
For thousands of years, the Chinese people have believed in Buddhas and Taos and becoming an immortal. Falun Gong really dared to talk about these things, and immediately people took it to heart. Oh, the true ancient good things of China have come back.
However, after 50 years of political campaigns to destroy traditional beliefs, any revival of spirituality was seen as a threat to communist rule.
Since I was 11, I experienced all of the Chinese Communist Party's campaigns. Group after group of good people were targeted. There was no faith, no truth. Falun Gong stood in stark contrast with communist ideology. So it would be very hard for it to be tolerated by the CCP.
With more practitioners than members in the Communist Party, the party chief, Jiang Zemin, saw it as a threat to his power and overruled the government's support of Falun Gong.
Jiang Zemin issued order, set up special office called 610 Office, in charge of nationwide campaign of persecution.
Known as China's Gestapo, the 610 agency was above the law and could use any and all means necessary to achieve its sole mission, to eliminate Falun Gong. The nationwide campaign began July 1999.
People were disappearing. I couldn't find my friends. One day there were 30 of us in the park, and the next day they're gone. And in the middle of the park, tacked on the tree, was a government declaration that this has been outlawed.
First time I heard about the persecution, I didn't believe it at the first. And when I heard my mom was into labor camp, I was very worried. And later on, my sister was put in the labor camp. My younger brother was put into jail. Basically, my family is just torn apart. When this family is torn apart, actually, I feel inside torn apart.
Like many practitioners, Pan Qi went to Beijing to appeal. She was arrested and imprisoned in the infamous Masanja labor camp.
I often hear the sounds of electric batons, and frequently in the middle of the night. I hear heart-wrenching screams from practitioners.
The goal was to make practitioners sign a statement to guarantee they would stop practicing, that they would renounce their faith.
She took the electric baton. When she was beating me, it felt like it was directly piercing through my heart. It was like my entire body started convulsing, like it was going to fall apart.
I personally have a friend whose mother was submersed in a cage. They put her in a little cage, they put him into sewer water in complete darkness for days. These are the different methods they're using on Falun Gong practitioners around the country, trying to transform them.
Hu Zhiming was teaching practitioners how to break through internet censorship in Shanghai when he was arrested.
Police did not know what I did, but they knew that I practiced Falun Gong. So they arrested me first. Then they investigated my background and arrested everyone who had been in touch with me.
After 2 years of interrogation, he was sentenced to 4 years at a Shanghai prison for teaching others to visit Mingwei.org, which reports daily on the persecution.
Every morning after I woke up, I was taken to a room and forced to sit about 1 meter away from the TV set and forced to watch videos slandering Falun Gong. This kind of brainwashing did not work. So they changed to another approach, which was intensive slave labor.
Outside the labor camps, propaganda campaigns against Falun Gong were running 24/7 on all media.
Like, you turn on the TV, and literally the only way to describe it is propaganda marathons. You'd have mass book burnings organized by the party, steamrollers going over Falun Gong cassette tapes and CDs.
Essentially, it's a process of demonizing and dehumanizing, incessant propaganda.
In January 2001, Chinese Central Television broadcast this news that people were setting themselves on fire in Tiananmen Square, and they claimed that these were Falun Gong practitioners.
This propaganda story used a mother and her 12-year-old daughter. It was a major turning point in the CCP's campaign.
They turned Tiananmen Square into a movie set, and they used movie techniques to try to create something, but it was staged.
Because state-run media broadcast it constantly for a year, people around China, their views on Falun Gong started to change.
Initially, the Communist Party was very public about its campaign against Falun Gong. But what happened after about, I would say starting from 2002, is that you started to see really almost more of a media blackout. Falun Gong simply became a taboo topic.
With millions of practitioners in detention, one of the worst crimes in history began taking place in hospitals throughout the country as organ transplants suddenly began to skyrocket.
We've been asked to investigate allegations that there has been harvesting of organs of Falun Gong in China. Our bottom line conclusion, after considering everything as best we could, was that the allegations are true.
I began conducting comprehensive interviews with medical professionals, Chinese law enforcement personnel, and over 50 refugees from the Laogai system. But I estimate that 65,000 Falun Gong were murdered for their organs from 2000 to 2008.
Essentially what organ harvesting means is they're taking Falun Gong practitioners literally like cattle, holding them in prison camps, testing their blood and other vital organs, and when someone comes into the country that needs a heart, a liver, a kidney, they find a match, they take the Falun Gong practitioner, extract their organs, of course killing them in the process. It is literally life and death for many of the upper echelon of the party members that run China to not let the Falun Gong story be told.
Falun Gong has been exemplary in its response. It has never dealt with violence in a violent way. It's always responded with forbearance, with love, with truth, with patience, and ultimately that's going to prevail.
All right, so there you go. Just watching this video, man, I'm just looking at myself, man. If these Chinese people had gun rights, none of this probably would be going on right now. But this is a prime example, folks, of what happens when they disarm the public. And people want socialism. I challenge you, go to China for a month, and for a week actually, and come back here and still tell me you want socialism. So that's disturbing, man. I tell you, man.
Damn right. You couldn't have said it best, Dan. Socialism is a trap. It's the forerunner of communism. Socialism is actually the communist constitution as the beginning step to communism. So don't let these radical leftists fool you, or Bernie fool you, because these people just have no idea. Bernie, he's a beauty, isn't he? Yes. In the name, he's such a beauty. So I mean, the communist regime is a reign of terror. It's about to collapse. They have caused such destruction and turmoil to the Chinese people, the slaughtering of Falun Gong practitioners and others. And what happened to me, my death threat. I was in 2005. I was 25 or 24. I was threatened by the communist thugs. They had a huge network. There's a huge network all over the internet. Communist spies networks on the ground and in the universities, monitoring the Confucius Institutes, which are communist mouthpieces. They're all monitoring, and they tried to come after me. And I had to sit down with the FBI, and I actually pat myself on the back because it made me feel like I gave them such a huge dent and a scare. So 2 FBI agents men in black, they bought me lunch, and they said, this was going on, and that they know exactly what's happening. And I filed a complaint or a charge against the communist regime's thugs with the Atlanta Police Department, and it was crazy. And I'm blacklisted from China, so it's an evil regime, man. It's a very evil, demonic regime.
Yeah, it is. And I got the article up here on the screen, just going through this, man. It's insane. FBI, I mean, like, getting threatened by everybody, I guess that's what happens when you speak the truth. I mean, there's always a price to pay, but, the price is always worth for freedom.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, what was the saying? The annals of freedom is soaked in the blood of patriots. What is that saying? I forgot that saying.
George, fed with blood from patriots and tyrants from time to time. Thomas Jefferson.
And to fail to expose evil and to fail to stand up for the good is unacceptable. And what is a man who cannot make the world a better place? And that's why, Dan, thank you, man. And I really appreciate coming on your show. And
remember, Thomas Jefferson said, resistance to tyrants, is obedience to God. So.
Exactly. And Albert Einstein said it best as well, that what's important is not when evil people do something evil. It's when righteous people stay silent and do nothing about it.
yeah.
So we can't be those kind of men. I mean, I would rather die a courageous man than live like a puppet or a slave, man.
Well, Edmund Burke, he was one of the founding fathers. He was a lawyer. He said a similar thing, like the only thing evil needs to succeed is for good men to do nothing. We could probably go back and forth with quotes all the time, man, but these quotes are very important to even today, man. These quotes were 100 years ago, and they're very relevant to what's going on today because they seen tyranny, they know what tyranny is about, and they created this country for the people to be able to defend ourselves against our own government if they became tyrannical, and tyrants is that, and it seems like today people, like another one from Edmund Burke, those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it, man. And you're seeing this happening, man. And people, because they're tearing the statues down, the historical statues, even if we agree with them or not, they're still history. They're tearing them down. They're erasing history from the books, so the students don't know history. So we're gonna walk right back into the old communist 1900s, and just in the 1900s alone. Hundreds of millions of people, innocent people, died by the hands of their own governments because they thought the governments would protect them, gave up gun rights, free speech, and everything else. And there would have never been a Jewish Holocaust if they had gun rights. There would have never been all these mass slaughters in all these countries. You know what I mean? And so this is history, folks. I mean, with this harvesting going on, man, and if the Chinese people, the Chinese people, I know if they had firearms, their government would be powerless against them.
Absolutely. And again, people ask me, well, we should go bomb China, and I'm like, well, we can't really do that. We can't start a war against it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be my.
Well, the best thing is right now, like you said, you nailed it. If they had weapons to arm themselves or to protect the families, this would never happen. However, for what we could do is just, first of all, discernment. I tell folks, go to the websites, check out the links that that you, Dan, are going to post on your web and your website, and check out the petition at some of the websites as well, stoporganharvesting.org. And I know, people think, well, what is a petition going to do? But think about this. Consider this. The pen is always more mighty than the sword. Shakespeare said that, I guess. And when you're writing a power of a will, a power of attorney of a will, or you're writing a signature on a check, that's your money. That's your hard-earned money. You're not just going to sign it for anybody. You're going to sign it because you believe in it, right? So the signature and a petition works the same way. It voices a support energetically, maybe not financially, but energetically, you're standing on the right side of destiny. And it's very important in the eyes of God. It's very important in the eyes of goodness. And it's very important in the eyes of patriotism and what America stands for. That you want to stand on the right side and support the Republic, support the constitutional values, support our great president, make America great again, and Trump 2020. Because I tell you right now, if Trump does not come in 2020, we are going to go to civil war. I mean, we're going to civil war.
Seriously
You know that. We all know that, right?
The only answer, because right now we're trying to avert it, a peaceful revolution and keep our president and everything else. But if this happens,
can you mention Bloomberg? Can you mention Bloomberg?
Oh, man.
I saw you the other day with Will. I loved it. I saw you guys, and and then you were also a Bill the rapist, Bill Clinton the rapist. I saw that. I loved it. I love when you guys go in there. Absolutely. Dan, I take my hat off.
Me and Will, we don't live too far from each other, and both of us have been actors for a long time, and he met me when I was working for InfoWars. I was doing some reports here in Rhode Island, and man, that kid's got a heart of gold. And Will Turbot for Demand the Truth, for those people who want to know who we're talking about. He's right on YouTube, Demand the Truth. Check that out. And he's got a heart of gold, man. He really does. A patriot's heart.
You too, Dan. You too, man. And I'm going to go on InfoWars with Savannah Hernandez, I think her name is. And I went on with Leanne McAdoo, and Alex is doing his thing. I mean, and Mike Adams, man, of Natural News,
I love
what he's talking about.
Mike Adams and Leanne and all those guys.
Love Mike Adams too. Yeah, they're great. They're awesome. But yeah, brother, it's been such a pleasure and a blessing, and we're making history, and this is a very historical account of what is going on. And thank you for letting me share about the Falun Gong, and everybody who's listening, man. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening. Go to the websites, read the books from Kilgour, the Kilgour Matas Report. It's free to download. From Ethan Gutman, The Slaughter. Look at the books and look at the websites, endtransplantabuse.org, the 9 commentaries on the Communist Party, our website, stoporganharvesting.org, and just spread it to more people. And if there's anyone out there that's listening who's a podcast host, a talk show, Dan, if you have any other contacts, please let me know, man. I'd love to.
Talk show host friends. It's my midnight. I work third shift, so it's early in the morning for me. So it feels like waking up 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm like out of it right now. But I'm gonna get your information out to all my talk show host friends here. All your information, the links are gonna be right in the description box. And like always, like, share, and subscribe. And if you got anything else to add, brother, what your website one more time? Stoporganharvesting.org.
Stoporganharvesting.org. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And and one more thing: if anyone's into yoga, like you in martial arts and kung fu, the exercises are wonderful. They really do great to the body, and people nowadays need a lot of stress relief and anxiety relief. And this actually protects. I've got a lot of testimonials out of China that when you practice the Falun Gong exercises, also known as Falun Dafa, you are actually protected from the coronavirus. You're actually more immune to healthy the psychological and physiological and immunal system. So the exercises are for free. The website is www.falundafa.org. Mr. Li Hongxi, who is the founder of Falun Gong or Falun Dafa, he's a 5-time nominee of the Nobel Peace Prize. He's a really interesting teacher. He lives in New York right now, and this is a tremendous practice for stress relief, anxiety relief, very organic, very natural. Whatever you are, whether you're Christian, Jewish, atheist, it doesn't really matter.
All right, actually, one more question.
Check it out. It's all free.
Just a quick question, because I know this is overwhelming for some people. What words of encouragement could you offer to somebody listening right now that's like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Like, and what can they do to take it? What could they do to help out? Even though they can't go to China or whatever, what can they do to help out? And what words of encouragement would you want to give them?
If I could reach out to you through this screen, that no matter what happens, we're living in a very hard time and a very tough time right now. Don't give up. Keep the faith. Hold strong. Believe in yourself. Trust your soul. You are the master of your fate. Check out these exercises. They're really powerful. There's a reason why you're listening to this. Obviously, the universe or whatever fate has brought you to this particular podcast. Check out the Falun Dafa exercises at falundafa.org. And, just keep your head up, because no matter what, people who are listening to this are good people. And whoever listens to these kind of podcasts and listens to Dan, you're going to be all right, because you know the truth, you know how to survive, you know how to take care of yourself, and you know what the discerning of right and wrong is. So God bless you, man, and woman.
And I'm going to pray for your safety, man, and because you've been where you are and under the communist threat and everything, I'm definitely going to, and I encourage people right now to pray for Mitchell's safety, man, because he's putting his neck out right now for doing what he's doing. So we need protection for him from God. And Mitchell, thank you once again from stoporganharvesting.org, and we'll put the links in. And I want to thank everybody for joining us on this broadcast. And we got some other awesome upcoming shows, and we're going to have Mitchell back on soon in the future. So this is Dan Bidondi for the Dan Bidondi Show. We'll see you soon right here on TruthRadioShow.com. Declaring war on the New World Order. TruthRadioShow.com.